I'm the Israeli emissary, work for Jewish National Fund, and we are happy to meet you all today with the real Zionist stories live from Israel with our partners, Makom, and this is our monthly meetup for educators, so you can always return to this recording, and we are going to send it after and to download it to our website, so it will be easy for everyone to use it always and to learn more about Zionist action in Israel. So I would love to give the stage over to my amazing colleague, Daniel. Please, Daniel.
So a big thank you to Zohar, to all of our visitors from Israel, and to you all for joining us tonight. We have really, probably one of our best programs set up yet. We're really excited about it. Just a quick note before we begin, we do have final confirmation that our educators' mission to Israel will be traveling. So if you are an educator, or if you joined us from as a result of a task force, we're very grateful to have you. But if there's an educator that you know of or someone you'd like to come see Israel through our lens, we'd be absolutely happy. I'm going to drop the link in the chat a little bit later. But now I have the very distinct pleasure. I'm going to read. I'm going to get to introduce Shosh. It's the shortest bio I've seen so far at JNF, so my hat's off to her. But Shosh Mintzman is the Chief Development Officer for Makom and the JNF Makom Liaison. Makom is a network of communities supported by Jewish National Fund USA that focus on empowering and revitalizing towns and villages throughout Israel through social action and community building activities. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce you all to Shosh Mintzman.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to be here along with my colleagues and to share with you the beautiful stories of the Makom communities and the amazing people that live in these communities. We're here to talk about modern day Zionism. You all know what Zionism is, but I'm here to tell you, along with the others, about what that means nowadays and the work that we do across Israel. So just to get the facts straight, Israel has 9.3 million people living here. About 74% are Jewish, and 21% are Arab, and 5% are of other ethnic groups. And what that means to live here in Israel, what that means to be part of society, means that we live in a country of all different cultures and backgrounds and customs. And the people that live here we are a rich, diverse society. And the way that we work together and operate together can sometimes be challenging. But we are all here for the same reason. We're here because we love Israel, because we're Zionists, and because we believe that this is our home. So how does all this connect to JNF? JNF's vision is to build and strengthen the Negev and the Galilee. And of course, it's being done on so many different fronts and on so many different levels. And we are the people aspect of it. You can build new neighborhoods and schools and medical facilities and beautiful parks, but you need the people to choose to live in these places. And you need the people to make that change in society so that these places become thriving places that people want to live in. So this is where Makom comes in. Makom Communities is an organization that is made up of over 240 communities across Israel. We have artist communities and educator communities. We have religious communities and secular communities. We have Ethiopian communities, and we have mountain Jews and Druze communities, and even Bedouin communities. And we are representing the people of Israel. Now, what is unique about Makom Communities is that not only do we operate as a community, which I'm sure you all are familiar with what communities are, but the way we operate is we enrich society and we impact on society in ways that we feel we can contribute. So the people that we have here with us are going to tell you these stories of not only of why they are here in Israel and why they have chosen to be part of a community, But what is unique about each of these different communities that we're going to hear about? Before we hear about the communities and the people, I'd like to share with you a short video just to understand the broader concept of Makom. Just 1 second.
JNF and Makom are proud to partner to uplift towns and cities throughout Israel's frontier and make them thrive. Makom communities are made up of idealistic, creative young people who live and work together and lead innovative initiatives to enhance education, culture, and employment throughout the Negev and Galilee. My name is Hadas from the Makom artist community in Afula.
My name is Uri from the Makom Educators Kibbutz in Natzrat Illit.
My name is Mechi from the Orthodox Zionist Makom Community in Sderot.
My name is Moshe from the Makom Ethiopian Community in Kiryat Gat.
My name is Noah. I live in Makom's urban kibbutz in Sderot.
My name is Daniel from the Mountain Jew Makom Community in Be'er Sheva.
My name is Teman. I'm from Makom Jewish Community in Beit Jan.
My name is Adasa from Baalei Tshuva Makom Community. Overall, Makom supports over 200 communities with thousands of members.
From Kiryat Shmona in the north to Eilat in the south.
At Makom, we believe in the strength of community.
By working together in towns and cities where Israel needs us the most,
we can impact the future of the Negev and Galilee.
And lead the way for many more to follow.
We invite you to join us in our mission and help make each and every town and city an amazing place. Makom Communities, the beating hearts of Israel.
Well, we're going to jump right in. I'd like to welcome our first guest, James Grant Rosenhead from the Educators Makom Community in Nofa Galil. Welcome, James.
Hi, everyone. I'm James. As you can hear from the accent, I am not a native-born Sabra Israeli. I was born in England and I grew up in England. And when I was 23 years old, together with a small group of friends, we decided to make Aliyah because we were inspired by a very specific dream, which I would say is that the dream was to build a new type of kibbutz. And so that's what I'm going to tell you about now. What you can see in the background picture behind me is our kibbutz. It's a very different type of kibbutz to what most of you maybe think of. Certainly when I was growing up, when someone said kibbutz, I would imagine green fields and milking the cows and growing fruits in the orchards and agricultural fields. But this, was, as you can see behind me, is a 9-story concrete block where 150 of us live together in kibbutz Mishol. Mishol is a Hebrew word which means a pathway, but it means like a naturally formed pathway. Like if a bunch of people walk backwards and forwards in a certain route across a field, then it forms a Mishol. So 150 of us live here in this building. We're in a town in the north of Israel called Nof HaGalil, which has a population of about 40,000 people. And we would define ourselves as reinventing kibbutz as a modern day type of community. And what do I mean by that is we have no fields, we have no cows, we have no swimming pool, we have no agriculture whatsoever. Instead, the work branches of our kibbutz are social projects which we run here in the neighborhood through our own NGO, through our own non-profit organization. So we take the idea of the old kibbutz, which pioneered the physical aspects of Israel by draining the swamps and paving roads and creating the physical infrastructure of the country and the agriculture and the industry, we today see ourselves as pioneering the socio-economic frontiers of Israeli society. And our definition is very much a Zionist definition. The blue shirt that I'm wearing is sort of the uniform of our youth movement that we run. Amongst other projects, we run a nationwide youth movement with about 50 branches. And the uniform is this blue shirt of the pioneers, which is taken directly from the old school type of agricultural kibbutz pioneers. But the work that we're doing day to day is that 150 people live in this building, and we get up each morning and we go out and we work in education primarily. And we're working in a neighborhood with a lot of socioeconomic issues, a lot of issues of poverty, issues of racism. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we live inside the kibbutz and also what we do in the neighborhood and some of those issues that we're trying to tackle. So like I said, there's 150 of us here, which is actually the total of adults and children. We're actually 70 adults and 80 children. So the number of kids has overtaken the number of adults and is still growing steadily. We share everything in this building. So we pay all the bills for the utilities in the building together as a community, as a cooperative. So I guess you could call it a co-housing community. But also, for example, we have a carpool of our 15 cars, which we share between all of us, and we coordinate that together. And I would say that we're also sort of a community consumer cooperative in other ways. So, for example, the 150 of us come to the cell phone company and negotiate a contract which is much cheaper by our collective bargaining power as a community. So all of these sorts of things we do because they're efficient, and for example, carpooling is good for the environment. But the main reason that we do these sorts of things is also to bring us together internally, to make a cohesive community with a lot of communication between us, a lot of dialogue between us. So the means is part of the ends, if you see what I mean. We come together for our Jewish culture. What I mean by that is we celebrate Shabbat together and all the Jewish festivals together, and bar mitzvah, weddings. All these events are very, very important to us, and we actually run, one of our projects is that we run a seminar center across Israel for renewing Jewish culture. We also come together every week for study groups, a Beit Midrash study group every Friday morning. Members of the kibbutz get together in small groups, so we study together. And we make decisions together on a consensus building decision-making model as a community. So we're essentially internally, we're like a classic old school kibbutz in that we're really sharing our lives together, sharing our resources together, making decisions together. Why do we make that type of internal community? Primarily is not just for ourselves internally. We don't want to live in this as a bubble. We're actually in the heart of the oldest neighborhood in our city. And we get up each morning and we go out and we run all different projects here in the neighborhood as an educators cooperative. So what I mean by that, to make it a concrete, what does an educators cooperative mean? It means that people from the kibbutz have established a kindergarten here in the neighborhood, which is both for our own little kids, but also for kids from this neighborhood. We run the local elementary school, both as teachers and as the principal of the school is from the kibbutz. In the grounds of that elementary school, we've also established a cutting-edge project of an educational greenhouse, where the kids can get hands-on environmental and scientific education. We also run after-school activities in a Beit Shoko Kids Club, which actually started off in one local branch and has now become a nationwide network of those after-school clubs. And we run a youth club in the neighborhood, which also has become a national network of youth clubs. Like I said before, we actually have 50 branches of our youth movement around the country. One of our newest projects that we established a couple of years ago is called the Bustan Community, which is actually a joint community, what we call a shared society of Jews and Arabs. Now, the neighborhood that we live in, to put all of those projects into context, is a 70% Russian-speaking neighborhood, and so the first language of the neighborhood is Russian by a long way. So if you walk into any of the shops or get on a bus in the neighborhood, people will first of all speak to you in Russian usually. The second language in the neighborhood is Arabic, about 30% Arabs, Muslims and Christians, about half-half. So there's only about 10% who would define themselves as Jewish and whose first language is Hebrew in this neighborhood. But maybe the more sort of concerning statistics are, on the one hand, it's about a 20% seniors or retirees or pensioners, depending on which version of English you're using, compared to a 10% national average, or about a 40% of the neighborhood families that live on welfare benefit support. So we're talking about one of the poorest neighborhoods in Israel. So from our perspective, the fact that all of these people that live in our community go out each day and work in formal education and informal education and as social workers and as youth counselors is the main tool. You know, if in the old days the main tool of pioneering was being a farmer to physically create the infrastructure of Israel, so for us, being an educator and a social worker are the primary tools for dealing with issues such as poverty and racism in a neighborhood like the one that we are living in. Why do we live like this? Why do we do all of these things? Why have we chosen to come here and build this sort of community and do these activism social projects? I think I would say is Tikkun Olam. We see ourselves as building this community because we want to make a good society for ourselves and for the neighborhood and for the country. So imagine for a second that everything that I've told you is just one small example of a network that we've made nationwide. So we're building these educators kibbutzim all over Israel, in all different cities and towns, and we see ourselves as trying to do our small part of trying to bring Tikkun Olam, of making the world a better place. I'm going to hand you back to Shosh to hear about more of the Makom communities.
Thank you so much, James. It was a wonderful opportunity to hear how Zionism has sort of reinvented itself into this modern day kibbutz lifestyle and a part of changing society. I'd like to point out that please feel free to use these different examples and the stories. This is only a glimpse of a few stories that you're going to be hearing here, but obviously afterwards there's so many materials that will be available, and please share these stories. It's another way to connect through the people and through the stories to Israel. So I'd like to introduce our second guest, Yuvi Tashumi Katz, who is a member of our Ethiopian Makom community in Gedera. Yuvi, welcome.
Hi, everyone. It's past midnight here, so it's a little bit challenging here. So my name is Yuvi and I'm from Gedera. I'm a member of Makom Community, I think almost 17 years now. I chose to be part of this. I was born in Ethiopia and came to Israel in '84, which was the first operation, the one who walked through Sudan and the whole journey. So I did that with my family, exactly with my grandmother, not my parents, but my grandmother. We walk a lot, but I have the opportunity to have a donkey. So I was a very VIP person because I have a donkey. So most of the time, so it was easier to me comparing to other kids. I don't remember a lot from the journey, except it was really hard and no food, no water in some point. And I remember my grandma, she was certain all the time, even when the robbers take over. And I was like afraid and feeling that it's it, are we gonna die? She was like laughing, holding me and said, "Don't worry." I was like, "How? I'm not worried." And she said, "Can't you see the one who is watching us, protecting us?" And I was like, "Who is protecting us?" So you don't see them? And I'm like, no, I don't see anyone. Looking around, no see anyone. But then she said, don't you see the angels? They are here. And she was so certain there was that I thought I'm the one who have a problem not seeing them. So by this belief, in the end, we get to Israel after a few months. And since I get here, as happening with a lot of immigrants, I start to feel that I really really Israeli, except, we left this home called Jerusalem or Israel long time ago. And these 2000 years, we hoping, praying to come back home. But when we did, the home looked different. Our brothers look different, think different. And we develop in a very, sometimes a different ways. And even so in Ethiopia, I felt so much Jewish and so much Jerusalem and so much Israel. When we got here, it was a question mark. I didn't feel like I'm fitting here, except the language, the food, and all that stuff. We have the issue with our Judaism, with our dark skin. So it's a lot of challenging. But you remember my grandma, right? She would look at me and she said, without saying, this is home. And I think for a long time, I didn't feel like it's home. Mostly because I grew up in these poor neighborhoods. And actually, most of the Ethiopian immigrants living in this very poor neighborhood, that most of the time there was poor before we came there. But the thing is, we accept this narrative saying these poor neighborhoods, it's because of us, because we are poor, not by money, by the thing that we didn't bring from Ethiopia. We didn't bring any education, we didn't bring any success, and so on. And by mistake, me and my generation accept that and felt that we are not good enough. And our dream and our goal was to go far away from this neighborhood, meaning from our community. But then I become a mother and I thought, whoa, where I'm gonna, raise my kid. And then me and my friends and a lot of Ethiopian immigrants said, we need to make a different approach. 2000 years, something helped us to keep our Judaism and our dream until we, accomplish that. And here we don't feel at home, so let's make some move to feel at home. And one of the things that we said is we young, very succeed young adults, we should stay in these poor neighborhoods and change the narrative from inside, and said we have a lot to contribute to the Israeli society. So this is the Garin of the community. This is my community. We're like 20 families living, raising our kids here together. Not all of us are from Ethiopia originally, but most of us. And by creating this program, that we took these parents that knew how to raise a lot of things, food, organic food. They raise their kids in a very unique way by telling stories, by oral stories. So we take this very much this knowledge, and we share that with the whole Israeli community. So each year there is like 6,000 people coming into our neighborhood to learn from how to raise your kid in Ethiopia. So you can do that here in Israel, how to grow your organic food and so on. So this is only one of our programs, but we're doing a lot of programming here. But I think the most important thing is we are being role models to the next generation by taking action and saying we are continuing what our parents started. They want to go home to Israel, and they did. I mean, the walk to home. And I feel like my generation goal is to make Israel home. And after 40 years, I have teenager kids raising here. I can say it's not quite a home like in 100%, but like 99%, it's definitely home. And if you ask me what is Zionism, is what my grandma did to come to Israel, and the whole idea of want to improve life. This is Zionism, and that's what we do in Makom, and for ourselves, neighbors, and for the next generation.
Wow, that was beautiful, Yuvi. Thank you so much for sharing your story, the story of the Ethiopians living here in Israel, and how it has taken everything together and really integrated into society, and the sense of belonging and connection has happened as a result of these communities. I would like to introduce our next guest. Our next guest is Avram Lifshitz from a modern Orthodox community in Migdal HaEmek. Welcome, Avram.
Thank you very much, Shosh. It's a pleasure to be here. And I wanted to share with you guys a story of a pin, a bottle of milk, and power tools. Because, you know, the big question is, how does a guy who grew up in Westchester, New York, make his way to Migdal HaEmek? And the truth is that it starts with this. This is a JNF pin, and it's also one of my first memories that I had as a 4-year-old from my inheritance from my great-grandfather, who had been very involved in JNF all his life and in the Israeli and Zionist causes. And it served as sort of a base for Zionist ideals. And I got a big dose of that the first time I came to Israel. Again, I was growing up in a modern Orthodox community in Scarsdale, which is in about 20 minutes outside Manhattan, to the north. And the first time I came to Israel was for my bar mitzvah. What struck me and what was so special here was just like, it was a whole society of Jews. I had a community of a Jewish community back in Westchester. But it just struck me, wow, there's a whole society here, whether it's the taxi drivers, it's the hoteliers, it's the store owners, really, the policemen. And that was something that was very, very inspiring that I knew from then I wanted to be a part of. Fast forward, post high school, I came to Israel and I had a chance to actually live here, go to the army, study in yeshiva, get a degree here. And the more I was in Israel, I was exposed not just to the opportunities and the idealism of a Jewish society, but also the responsibilities of having an Israeli society and meeting the challenges that come with restarting a Jewish society for the first time in 2,000 years. And I knew I wanted to be a part of that. So when my family and I, my wife's from Toronto, and we have 5 kids. When we were coming back from Australia, where we were on shlichut as emissaries of educational emissaries of the state of Israel, we knew that we wanted to go to the periphery. Now, got to explain, like, is something. What does it mean? Like, what is the periphery? Because life in Israel is very, very different than growing up in the New York metro area in many, many ways. Firstly, where's the community? Like, growing up, the school is the community, the shul is the community. That's where you find your social circles. In Israel, it's very, very different. It's not in the shul. The shul is a place we go to pray, but beyond that, well, where is the social circle going to be? So that was a question that we were asking ourselves when we were coming back from Australia. And furthermore, there are other challenges that we find in the periphery, which is, and it's new things for me. And that growing up in Westchester, in a well-off community, there's always this, you hear stories about poverty, you hear about stories about people in need, but there are always a few degrees of separation. So when we came to Migdal HaEmek, when we joined the mission-driven, the Bnei Akiva mission, modern Orthodox mission-driven community here, we didn't start our own institutions. We specifically wanted to integrate within the city, create this wider community, and we started sending our kids to the local school. The local school was at that point was at a low. Like, as when I say low, I mean there were 0 kids who signed up for first grade before the mission-driven community families came to Migdal HaEmek. It was almost closed down. So what we did is we actually, how do you deal with that? It's obviously happening for a reason, whether it's violence in school, whether it's other educational issues that are not being met, or it's not just that it isn't being met. The people who are on the ground don't have the tools to do that, because we're not living in Tel Aviv, we're not in the center of the country, the resources aren't getting to us, and the tax base it's much lower here. In other words, like the average wage in Migdal HaEmek is minimum wage. Like tuition here is very different. It's probably more than $200 a day. You do the math in like the New York metro area. It's $200 for the whole year here. And even so, there are families that can't afford that. And this really shocked me when I was speaking with one of the teachers, and it came out that there were kids in my own kids' class that not that just weren't going out to eat, not just they weren't going on vacations to Greece, but they couldn't afford milk. They couldn't afford a bottle of milk at the end of the week. That was like, what? I'd never come to like zeros. There's no degrees of separation here. We're part of the same school community. What do you do with that? We're confronted at the grassroots level with a problem. What do we do with that? And in our community, we're 70 families, we're 400 people, more than 400 people from all types of vocations. People who are in high tech, people who are businessmen, people are, we're educators, plumbers, electricians, all types of people. What makes us a community is we're a community of doers. We see those problems, we see those missing bottles of milk, and we try to find a solution. We're there, we're able to provide those solutions because we know the people, we're at the grassroots, and we're innovative. So for example, in that situation, we started a tzedakah fund, and we started a tzedakah fund to help specifically the Bnei Menashe community. The Bnei Menashe community are Jews who came from India, and many of them are underprivileged. And we started a program to help them on an ongoing basis, to help finish the month and be able to keep their head above water financially. And now, for example, working on a program, also a teen program, to actually help break the cycle of poverty and being underprivileged, and to tackle it from a more educational side. And so we're a community of givers. We're able to identify those problems and those challenges. And then what we try to do is then change the story. We change the narrative. We change the way that people see themselves here in the city. Whereas justifiably so, the history is quite challenging here. I mean, it was a city of people coming from mostly Oriental countries, from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. It was a city of crime 30, 40 years ago. Mafia, gangs, a dangerous place to live. And there's still a lot of stigma when I told Israelis that we were going to be going, back in Australia, when I told Israelis you're going to Migdal HaEmek, they're like, what? What are you doing there? Migdal HaEmek? Yes, Migdal HaEmek. Because we've been able to help provide many of those solutions. We're able to help to change the narrative, change the story, not just for ourselves, but even for the people who live here. As an example of a program that we started to change the story, we started a social tourism initiative that both gives training to small businesses and in the city to tell the stories that haven't been told, and from Ethiopian descent, from Oriental descent, other Olim, from Russians, and to help be able to let them tell their story. Not let them, but give them the opportunity to do that. And then we also market those. Once we give them the training, we actually market them to tour operators to come to Migdal HaEmek. That just totally changes the narrative. Like we're not forgotten, we're not lost. No, we're actually telling our story to other people. And we do that through that. We do it through creating people-to-people person-to-person connections as equals. Like we specifically didn't start our own school. People want to get involved in the school. We don't have our own education committee or something like that with our own individual community. Rather, we say, okay, get involved in the Parent Teachers Association, along with other families and other parents from other backgrounds, and we work together. We work in collaboration in order to achieve those educational goals. Very often, though, we're the ones. Our mission-driven community is the one who's bringing the resources, is bringing the technical know-how to get a good job done. As an example, this week we are, can you imagine like sending your kids to having a school where there isn't a place to play during the break? There's no basketball hoop, and there isn't any other source to get that basketball hoop. So we actually are renovating our mission-driven community is renovating a basketball court in the school so the kids will have an opportunity to play. It starts with many small things like that, and it gets to bigger things in Corona. We're not just creating a circle of doers within our own community, but also at the city level. During Corona, we started over 200 volunteers who helped elderly and Holocaust survivors get their meds, do groceries when they weren't able to go out because of all the danger, and that was something that changes the story from someone of we can't, rather that to we can do and we can help and we can give. And so just to sum up what it means to be in a community of givers, to share this, the first day that we had in Migdal HaEmek was a total disaster. Our movers were horrible, and they got a bit tired at the end of the day. And after they brought all the 250 boxes up to the third floor, they left. And they left us without any of the furniture being made. So here we are, we're stuck in a new place. We don't know anyone. I have absolutely no idea where the tools are. How in the world am I going to even unpack the boxes if I have nowhere to put this stuff? And I hear a knock at the door. And who is it? It was a family from the mission-driven community who had brought us a cake. And that cake came along with a question. What do you need? And I was so relieved just to hear those words, because we were in a tough spot at the moment. And we explained the situation. Within 15 minutes, 6, 7 people, I had no idea who they were. They never met me in their life. Were gathered from the community through the communal WhatsApp. They came with their power tools, and with the power tools, they're able to build all the closets and all the furniture, and we were able to have our first night in Migdal HaEmek sleeping in peace. I think that just sort of sums up what it means to be part of a community of givers. It's just regular people like anyone else. We have jobs, we have kids, we have families, but on top of all that, we're also volunteering. We're making a difference through those to just try through making a difference through identifying those small problems and trying to provide solutions, from the grassroots. So whether it was the ideals, from the JNF pin, or whether it was the shock and the surprise of being, of seeing and the problems of the grassroots, or the missing bottles of milk, or the solution and the help that came in the form of the power tools. It's real. I couldn't think of a better place, to raise a family and to also make an impact here in Israel as an Oleh and as a citizen of Israel.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Avram, for sharing your side of what it's like to be in a community, in one of our Makom communities in Israel. And I think as you all are hearing, and in a minute we'll hear our fourth story, it's all about making a difference. We all have a choice in life. We can choose to live a normal standard life, or we can choose to do something different that is meaningful to someone else. And this is what we see across all of our Makom communities. So with that, I'd like to introduce Aviran Mishayev, who is going to tell us about himself and about the Mountain Jews people and the Makom communities here in Israel. Welcome.
Thank you, Shosh. I'm very glad to be here and to share my experience in Israel and changes that we already did. I made Aliyah in 1995 from Baku, Azerbaijan, and one of the founders of Mid-Early Door Association since 2011, which deals with an informal education for children, teenagers, and young people. Nachman Bialik said that donator in one generation gives the values to the next generations. Once one generation firmly stands on its own feet, it will then contribute of its own accord to empower future generation of the community. I was born in Mountain Jewish family, some call us Caucasians. Mountain Jews have lived in Caucasus for centuries and is one of oldest Jewish community in the world. They lived in areas that was mostly Muslim, but maintained their Jewish identity was respecting their neighbors and were among leaders of the society in all fields. Mountain Jewish community has always had an affinity to the Holy Land and has been active in Zionist movements since its foundation. The first official Aliyah from the Caucasus was in 1881. The Mountain Jews stood out with courage, guarding the Holy Land, real warriors without fear. They participated in building settlements and cities in the country and were among founders of Hashomer and Bar Giora, two organizations that were defending the land of Israel. In the 1990, when there was a large-scale Aliyah from Soviet Union, the Mountain Jewish community was treated by government ministries such as Ministry of Immigrant Absorption, Welfare and Local Government, like other Olim from Soviet Union. Disregarding our community's differences, our mentality, traditions, and culture. Government institutions were not aware of specific features of our community life. Therefore, we were deprived of attention to our problems. Look at me. I have fluent Russian, Azeri, and Turkish languages as well. But I not look like Olev from Moscow, Ukraine, Belarus. I'm different, and I'm close to more close to Sephardi community than to Ashkenazi. Our kitchen is close to Mizrahi and Sephardi kitchen, and not for like Olim from Russia and Ukraine and Belarus and Moldova. Okay, and the government institution did not see that. In Caucasus, our women, the life in Caucasus, that women were mostly housewives and dedicated themselves on education and the upbringing of children, and men was responsible to livelihood, to family's livelihood. Okay, and when they immigrated to Israel, everything changed. The father was working most hours of the day, 13, 14 hours, and it wasn't enough. And the woman also had to go to work. So the children were left unattended. The parents work at work most of the day. Children didn't attend school properly. Parents could not help to do homework. So there were problems with behavior at school and at home. As one clever man said, that in order for a child to succeed and reach greatness and maximize his potential, one adult needs to believe in him. This is what made us to think creatively and give solutions where government have failed. We can't allow our children to get lost. We, young men and women, members of Mountain Jewish community, begin to understand that we must take responsibility of younger generation and reduce the damage of hard immigration that families have had. We began to develop responses to the challenges and needs of the community, focusing on the population of children, teenagers, and young people, as well as adults. We established educational activity frameworks and community centers throughout the country, which operate community education for all age range, such as preparation for first grade for children in compulsory kindergarten, prolonged classes for grades from 1st to 4, programs for youth leadership and preparation for army, young families with their infants. Our programs are open to all communities without limitation, only to our community and children's as well. So we are donator also. It will help to create strong ties to whole Israel society. Our main goal is to strengthen ourselves and then go out to strengthen others in our community. We have done full formation activities for the community itself to strengthen them from inside and help them to believe in themselves and not to be ashamed of it. Who does not remember their past has no future. Our community has a glorious history in Israel, which has not been told anywhere. And when the younger generation does not have its own history, they begin to invent stories that not belongs to our community and that gets lost. Once those children and teenagers know that they have real and strong roots in this country, then they will be able to be integrated into key positions. The Caucasian Jews once comprised a closed and introverted community full of terrible prejudices, and now we set ourselves to a goal of changing the stigmas. So we in community centers remind our traditions and values that unite the whole community and educate future generation so they can be integrated into Israel society in the fastest and safest way. That's why we want to preserve what is good for us and create strong ties with Israel society in order to move forward together. A Mountain Jewish community will be a significant element in everyday life in Israel, and our state will become stronger and more solid. In conclusion, there is one educational perception. We believe that in order to make people belong to society, they need to have a life story they could be proud of and know that they have something to contribute to the whole country. Once it's implemented, they can be easily pushed to the mainstream of the society. And this example can fit in every immigrant society anywhere in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aviran. That was fascinating to hear about the Mountain Jews. I'm sure many have a lot to learn about the history of the Mountain Jews, and not only the history, but what's happening here in Israel. And I'd like to connect this to Israel as a whole and the people living in Israel. We all know that Israel is the country of immigrants, and you just heard a few stories. But we all come here to live in Israel for this purpose, because we choose to live here and because we want to make Israel a better place for everyone, for all the Jewish people across the world. And when we talk about strengthening and building communities, cities, towns in the Negev and the Galilee, it's through these Makom communities where we focus on education, we focus on connecting people to each other, we focus on making a difference in other people's lives and doing for others. And this is what changes the reality here. And in each of these towns, we just got a few examples. Multiply that across 240 communities across Israel. This is what's making the difference. And this is what we call modern day Zionism. I'd like to take this opportunity to open it up for questions if anyone has, whether it's about Makom or more specifically from one of our speakers. Anyone?
You can give a feedback as well, any comment, question, or whatever you want. Now the stage is yours. I can tell you, wow, it's fantastic. I heard a few stories, and always to listen to them is, wow, it's very exciting, a very emotional moment. And to learn, you know, from place to place, to understand what is kibbutz galuyot. What is the meaning to be yachad, shivtei Israel together? I think Makom is symbolized this opportunity. And I can say for all of you, our dear educators all over the state, so take the opportunity to bring the stories, share the stories with your students, with your classes, and you heard real life and the stories, and each story will follow with more information and more videos and materials that you can use when you receive the follow-up email, as well as all the materials you can find at our website, Ask Herzl. So take the opportunity, and please mention question or comment or feedback, please.
Thank you. And I'd like, for those of you that aren't familiar, we have a very special program that connects communities and congregations from across the US to our Makom communities in Israel. And we have launched this program, actually it was right before COVID started, but with this specific intention, is we want to create these connections. We understand the importance. So whether you have a classroom of kids or a youth group that you're leading, or whatever, even if it's a congregation of families, we are open to these connections, and it can be done in so many beautiful ways. So please, we welcome you to connect. It's important for us just as much as it's important for you. And we think that it's a wonderful opportunity, not only to learn about us, but to sort of get the vibes that we have in our day-to-day life and share them across congregations and communities in the USA. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Josh,
Yes.
Josh, may you read maybe the chat? I saw some
Sure.
feedback. And may I ask Ayala if it's possible to give a feedback from your perspective, in your position.
Okay.
In Lerman School, it's really important to learn from you how you can take it and make it, you know, very accessible for your students.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to thank all the people who shared with us these amazing stories, and really now. What I was thinking, we are in our school, we do with the students many projects, and we ask them to research about different cities in Israel and about different people in Israel, if they from the politics, from culture, and now by listening to you guys, I was thinking maybe even to come, of course, to teach first about Makom, but to research about, to show the kids that we have different communities. If Am Israel High and Am Israel United, and we are in Eretz Israel, we are but there are so different communities, and they can learn and research, and we can work on the different communities that are in Israel now. So this is another thing that really I'm taking from listening to you guys, and think that our student needs to know about. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll read the comments here. Inspiring as always. Thank you. So inspiring. You're shining examples of living lives of giving and meaning. Wow. Amazing. Thank you. Very enlightening. Thank you, Toda. Amazing. Thank you so much, Toda. We want to thank you. We want to thank you for caring. We want to thank you for doing your part in connecting the future generation to Israel, and for being that bridge that connects them to Israel and to Zionism. And we are here. Zohar, you can speak about the materials that will be available soon at the Ask Herzl website.
Yes, let's say in 2 days, and from 2 days, you can find all the materials about Makom and about our amazing 4 stories that we learn today. What is today Shiftei Israel? What is today the integration? What is today the Zionist activity that every one of the stories are so particular by itself? And you can take both of them, all of them, few of them, and you can take to your class. Maybe you can do like a curriculum for all over the year. So you can learn more about all sites in Israel, or few sites in Israel, Shiftei Israel, a few of them, all of them, particular sites, like to learn about kibbutz. Okay, kibbutz in the middle of city. Okay, what is the meaning the kibbutz? If we know in the state what is kibbutz, so we know only maybe in the Negev or in the Galilee. But here, wow, it's so amazing kibbutz. So this, I think this is a very creative way to engage to our next generation, that all of them in your under your leadership, to take it, you know, we will give you the stories and the ideas, and we are very lucky that we have a great partnership with Makom. So I would love to take the opportunity to thank every one of you, especially all the partners for Makom. You are amazing, and I learn a lot. And I know, but I learn a lot also today. Thank you so much, Shosh. And I would love to give to my amazing colleague, Daniel, to close with a few words and to remind you again about the seminar that will come soon.
So again, just an enormous thank you to Shosh, to James. I'm going to miss someone, and I hate when I do this, but Aviran, and I think Yuvi. In case I miss someone, I do sincerely apologize, but a big thank you for...
James.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
A big thank you for coming and sharing your stories with us. I work for JNF, I've been here almost 7 years, and I still am completely inspired and learn a new thing on every call. So big thank you for that. We have our educators seminar coming up. It is it's happening July 20th to the 26th in Israel, which I know is like just a crazy idea that we can actually now travel and get outside and visit places which are not, you know, beyond our doors. So if you have any ideas of educators, or if you yourselves want to come join us, we would be honored to have you. I look forward to having you at our next one, and a big thank you for joining us.